Welcome back to the channel, guys. In today's video, we check out Thymesia, or Thymesia? I'm not real sure how this is pronounced. Thymesia sounds good to me. Welcome back, everybody. It has been quite a while since I have filmed a video. I did Little Nightmares just the other day, but it's been probably about a month since I posted anything. Personally, I've had lots of family issues. My wife and my son were both sick in the hospital for a little bit. My wife had a procedure done. Everybody is good now. We're all back home. Everyone's doing well, but it did take some time off during that time. And then we took a vacation right after that. We went to Disneyland, Universal Studios. So it's been about a month since I posted any content. And today we're jumping right into Thymesia. Before we get started, guys, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like this video. This is the next game in a long list of Souls-like games, and I'm gonna just be straight up and honest. I am a sucker for these types of games. I freaking love From Software. I love Bloodborne, Elden Ring, Dark Souls. So whenever game companies try to emulate what From Software has done, I'm always like, sign me up. So Thymesia was on my radar for a while now. I'm currently playing through Steel Rising. Both of those definitely heavily influenced by From Software. And then you got games like Code Vein. Mortal Shell is definitely another Souls-like game. And so yeah, I'm already prone to really like this game, so just beware that my opinion might be a little biased. I will say that I don't think it's better than any of the From Software games. It's kind of like that thing where they're trying to, any company that's trying to be like From Software never quite captures that From Software feel. And it's really hard to like nail what it is. I don't know if it's just the scope or if it's just the world. I don't know what it is, but it's just like this game was great, but it didn't quite capture that feeling of From Software to a T, if that makes sense. Now, the story for Thymesia, you play as Corvus. He is a plague doctor, and he's going around and he was trying to heal the city from this plague that is going around and ravaging everybody in the town, or the kingdom per se. And the whole game that you're playing through, you're actually playing through Corvus's memories, because he has amnesia and he basically forgot everything, and he forgot the cure, because the whole time you're going through, you're trying to get these cores from different bosses, and you combine the two cores at the end to do specific things. Like, there's like 5 endings to this game, which is crazy. There's like 3 main areas that you go to. The first one is like in the trees kind of thing, and there's like a circus that's up there. And then the next one, you're playing through like an underground, like blood everywhere, crystals growing through. You're playing down in the roots. And then the next one, you're actually playing through the actual kingdom. And it's kind of cool. You can play through each level of these. There's, like I said, there's 3 main areas, but you only have to play through the first 3 of each level to basically beat the game. It's the fastest way to beat the game. There's 5 endings, but you can play through the first level of each one, be done. But after you beat each level, like the first level, another level unlocks. It would be like sub-level 1. You play through that one, and some of them have quite a few. I think the first 2 actually have like 4 or 5, and then the last like kingdom type, castle type area has 3. Now, but you don't unlock them all at once. You have to play through the first level, and then you play through the side quests. So these are all side missions. They're all optional, which I highly recommend you play, because that's where some of the best bosses are. That's where some of the best everything is in those side quests right there. Like I said, the end game is, there's 5 different, I shouldn't say end game, because there's not really an end game. There's no new game plus or anything like that. But they did do something that I personally really appreciated, is that there are 5 different endings, and if you go through, and like I said, if you just play the first level of each one, you won't be able to get all 5 endings in the one playthrough. But if you go through every level, playing every side mission, defeating every boss, at the very end, you'll be able to get all the endings. Basically, you combine 2 cores, and then you watch the cutscene, and it'll tell you what happened depending on the 2 cores that you combined. But at the end of that, it'll say, is this correct? Because remember, these are all like memories, and you could say yes or no, and if you say no, it'll take you back right before the final boss fight, and basically you just have to fight the final boss like 5 times to see all 5 endings. So So it's not bad because the final boss is definitely my favorite boss. Jumping right into the gameplay. The gameplay is very fast-paced, and just like Bloodborne, I love it. You only get one weapon in this game, kind of. Your main weapon is you just have a sword and you have a small dagger to parry. There is a block in this game. There's a bunch of different like abilities. We'll get into that in just a minute. But as far as weapons goes, that is your main weapon, is the sword. And then with that, you have this ability called Reeve, where you can basically steal another enemy's weapon. But you don't literally steal it. You like jump in and then like you almost like rip out, like it's almost like you're ripping out the soul. But you have now like a spear that's like a one-time use where you can, you know, hit them with the spear. You got axe, giant sword, giant axe, things like that. My personal favorites that I used quite a bit were the scythe, and I did use the great sword. And the great sword I used a lot because just the tap of square did like an uppercut, and it would always launch enemies onto their back. Even bosses, I mean, they didn't always go onto their back, but it stunned them for just a second, and sometimes that's all you needed to just get that one healing item in. So you have that. You have all these different upgrades. There's a ton of different skills you can get. Basically, you get up to 25, and after you hit 25, you don't get any more skills. But the good part is that you can restart and respec all of these things for free. Like all your skills, like if you invested a bunch in a certain skill and you're like, you know what, I don't really care too much for blocking, I'm going to restart it all and invest it into parrying, which is, I highly recommend, by the way, because the parry is great. But you have that ability, you have that freedom to swap out all these different abilities. For instance, like if you just don't like a certain ability, or you decide to, you know, it gives lots of like build variety. You could test certain things out, which was great, because even at the end I was looking for certain ingredients, so I respec so that I can have my item drops be a lot higher, and so that was great. All the enemies are, I guess, good at first, but basically you're refighting a lot of the same enemies. So it's like you're all fighting like humanoid type enemies, other than like the big enemies, whether they're bosses or mini bosses. Those are the only real variety. The mini bosses, you got like this, which was probably one of the hardest, I believe, enemies in the whole game, is like this like vampire looking chick that's got really long nails, and she throws like throwing star type things at you, throwing knives, and she's very fast and very aggressive, and she always beats the crap out of you. Going along with the weapons, like I told you guys, you can unlock within the skill tree, you can unlock to get more of the slots for reeved weapons. So you get the one weapon that you can actually reeve or steal from another enemy, and then you have ones that you just unlock and that you can just press at any time. Those are usually square. Press that. Triangle is to use the weapon that you reeved. I unlocked it to where I can have 2 reeved weapons, and so it's like you have a possibility of using 3. They all use energy, but then there's a spec that says whenever you kill an enemy, your energy fills back up. So like I had my build pretty much, I could just spam those, and those are your best attacks. Along with the combat is, if you look at your enemy's health bar, there is 2. You have a white one and a green one. Once you knock that white one all the way down, they have what is they're wounded, and if you don't heal them fast enough, that white health bar will come back up and it'll heal them. So it's like basically you have to knock down their shield, and then you use your claw attack, which I unlocked it to where I could do like a chain where you could do like 5 in a row instead of just doing one big powerful one. I did ones that did slightly less damage, but a lot more, like just a lot more hits, because then you could stun them. So you have to basically take out both of those health bars enough to where you can get in a critical hit, and usually they will have like a circle dot in them and you could do a critical. There's no customization in this game, which is kind of sucks. So I guess that aspect of like From Software games they left out. You're just Corvus the whole time, and you're just wearing the same outfit, same swords, which it all looks great. You look like a plague doctor. It looks great. I do wish that there's just a little bit more that you could do with that, but you know, it is what it is. We talked a little bit about the levels. The level design in this I thought was actually pretty great. There's quite a few different branching paths. Not as much as Bloodborne, or not as much as some other games, but there's enough variety where I can venture off and look, you know, down different hallways or go a different direction, and usually I would be rewarded with something, whether it's more consumables to help level up, or a different enemy where if I destroy it, it'll drop like a healing core so that I can, you know, get more stuff to level up my healing items, things like that. Also, just the levels themselves looked really cool. Like I said, the first one, you're in like up in like the trees, and it's just like a bunch of like tree houses and bridges and stuff like that, but it's all like green and murky, and I think it looks great. Like the level, like just the visual appeal of all the levels look fantastic. Like I said, there's only 3 main levels, so even though you're playing through like this foresty type area, every single sub-level within that same area is going to be the same. So once you beat that first level, the next 3 levels are going to be the same, and then when you go to the, I'm forgetting the names of the actual levels, I'm sure I'll have them up screen here, but then the next one is like I said, it's got blood everywhere and these big old red crystals, and it just looks visually awesome. Like I love it. It looks cool. And then the end is the big castle, the kingdom that you're going through, and that looks super cool. And I think the levels and level designs are great. Minus, I would say that like when you do these next levels, I wish that there's a little bit more variety, because a lot of the times where you go to the next like sub level 1 and it's basically playing the first level over again, either backwards, or a few like ladders that were there are gone, or a few bridges are now blocked off. So it's like you're still playing through the same level, but just in a slightly different variation, if that makes sense. So I do wish that that was a little bit better. And that kind of goes on with visuals. I played Thymesia on the PlayStation 5, and it looked freaking fantastic. I didn't have any visual glitches or anything per se, although there was one time where I did have a glitch where I kind of got stuck in the wall, if that makes sense. And there's this one particular area in the first area, or a particular spot in the first area, where right as I spawned in, it was a little bit like the frames dropped for just like 2 seconds. Like you could see like it was going from about 60 frames and it dropped all the way down to pretty low. I don't know what the frames were, but I just know that it looked very choppy for like 2 seconds, and then the game fixed itself. But other than that, that was the only issue that I ever had in the whole game. Everything else ran smoothly. I didn't have any pop-in. Everything looked great. It was awesome. And my favorite part of the whole game, just like From Software games, is the bosses. I saved the best for last because I freaking love the bosses. The bosses here are great. They're the best part of the whole game. The first boss is, I would say, probably one of the more difficult bosses, just because you're still trying to get a hold of, you know, how the game works, and also you just don't have as many abilities unlocked. When I go back and look, I'm like, is he really that hard? But when I replayed the level with basically better, you know, abilities unlocked, more things unlocked, higher level, he wasn't too difficult. But for a beginning boss, I would say he was pretty difficult. He's got like I think his name's Ordor, and he has like this hat, and he's like a magician throwing cards, and he's just very fast, and he hits hard, especially for a first boss. It was like 2 hits and I'm dead. But he was great. You fight like this giant bat, which actually was not hard at all, but it just looked so cool. It's like caged inside this giant like bird cage, and that was awesome. And then Ordor, the hat guy, was experimenting with blood and made like this giant like monster thing that had no legs, and it would spew poison at you, and it's smashing the ground. Like, it just looked cool. It was not a hard boss at all. I actually beat it without using any healing items. That's one of the trophies, by the way, beat a boss without healing. And that one's more of like a gauntlet, where it's kind of like that dragon from Dark Souls 3, where you have to pass all like the BS snake dudes and all these enemies just to go around the corner and drop down and kill it in one shot. Literally the same thing. You're going through all these enemies, gauntlet of enemies. There's a ton, a few mini bosses, and I'm just sitting here trying to fight them all, and after a while I was like, I'm just gonna run past it. But at the same time, I'm like super like, I don't know if you want to call it picky. I always have to beat every enemy at least once. And so I did wipe out all the enemies, and then I died because it shot poison at me and it killed me. But then I ran all the way through the end, and then you one-shot it. And then the last couple bosses were really great. You fight like this giant knight with a huge sword. And then you fight this other girl that's, you know, that he was protecting. I don't know the names for most of these guys. Like, I'm just drawing a blank. But basically, if you don't parry in this game, I mean, the first couple bosses, yeah, you'll be alright, but the last couple bosses, if you just don't parry, you're just going to get wrecked. Like, for sure. And with this one, they have an ability too, which I thought was pretty cool, where if you parry somebody, you actually chip away at their shield, like the white health bar that you got there, which leaves them open for more. They're wounded, so now you can use your claw attacks and do that. I did forget the feather ability. I didn't really use the feather ability too much, other than I unlocked it to a point where I could throw a feather, and if I hit it again, I could teleport right up to them, because there's a lot of times where I'd knock down their shield or get them wounded, and they'd, you know, back away, and then I'd throw a feather and then hit it, you know, tap it twice, and you teleport right in front. And that was a lot of fun. But all the boss fights in this game were super fun, super hard. Like, they weren't easy. Definitely not as hard as some of the Bloodborne fights, but I definitely think that a lot of those fights were pretty difficult. Probably difficult than a lot of From Software bosses in some regards, but I had a great time. We talked a lot about some of the positive stuff. Now some of the things that I didn't quite like is that, one, there's no like voice acting at all in this game. It's just text that pop up, where at the beginning it gives you like a little rundown, and even when you're talking to, there's like this bird chick, I forget what her name is, but she looks kind of like Aline the Crow, where she's got like, you know, the crow feather cape, but there's no talking or anything like that. You hear like grunts and stuff like that, but like you just basically read the text, which I thought was kind of lame. I was like, I wish that there was some sort of voice acting. And on top of that, some of the boss fights, they actually are talking to you at the same time as fighting you, and I thought that was weird because I couldn't even like read to see what they say. The only time I saw that there was text that popped up is when I died, and I see it, you know what I mean, like when the bosses say certain things. Like I think Odor, the first guy, would say that the show must go on, or something like that, because he's in the circus. So I do wish that there was voice acting. It was kind of a bummer to not have that there. And then another thing, it's, I guess, nitpicky, but I do wish that there's a little bit more weapon variety. I guess they give that to you in the form of like reeved weapons, but I just wish that there's a little bit more. Other than that, the game ran fine, the game looked fine, the boss fights were great, the enemies were great, although that there's very few enemy types. I wish there was more of those. And some of the really cool enemy types you don't encounter very often. Like there's like this Grim Reaper type thing, and you fight it like 3 or 4 times in different spots, and that's it. So I do wish that there's a little bit more of that. Overall, I had a great time. Like I said, I'm super biased, so I love games that are like this, like Mortal Shell, this game, Steel Rising. Those are the ones that are popping in my head right now. Like I said, I'm biased to them. I love them. Overall, I would give Thymesia an 8 out of 10. I freaking loved it. I actually liked it so much, I got the Platinum Trophy here. I'll throw it on screen somewhere. But I got the Platinum for it. It was not a super hard one. There were a few that were pretty difficult trophies, but I had a blast. Let me know down in the comments below, guys. What did you think of Thymesia? And as far as, you know, Souls-like games, I think this was a pretty decent one. I think it's right up there with Mortal Shell, which I also thought Mortal Shell was a great game by indie developers. Awesome game. If you guys haven't played it yet, I highly recommend going out and getting it. And that's going to be it for the video, guys. Let me know, like I said, down in the comments below what you guys thought. Subscribe if you're new. Put a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you guys later.